In this video, we're asked to determine the gradient and the y-intercept point of the line. Let's look at part A. 2y equals x minus 5. Now, to obtain the solutions, each equation must be rewritten in the form y equal mx plus c, which is the slope-intercept form. So now we write the equation that we're given. Now we need to look at the setup. We have the equal sign. On the right of the equal sign, we have the right-hand side. On the left of the equal sign, we have obviously the left-hand side. On the left-hand side, we only want to have one y on the left-hand side of the equal sign. But on the right-hand side, we want the x term to be on this side, as well as the constant c. So we will transpose the equation until we get this set up. So looking at the equation 2y equals x minus 5, we do have the y term. Let's look at it. 2y equals x minus 5. We do have the y term on the left hand side, the x term on the right hand side of the equal sign, as well as the constant on the right hand side of the equal sign. But we need to do one thing here. We want the y term, yes, on the left hand side, but we do not want to have any other quantity of y but one y. So we have to remove this 2 from the 2y. In other words, the coefficient of y should only be 1. Now, we recognize that a coefficient multiplies to the left of the variable. And to remove it, we need to divide by that coefficient so that we can get 1. 2 divided by 2 is 1, so now we have 1y written just as y, because 1 times y is simply y. Now, in an equation, to keep it balanced, what we do to one side, we do to the other side as well. Now, of course, this is the same thing as saying x divided by 2 minus 5 divided by 2. Just the same as dividing every quantity on the right-hand side by 2. Okay, so now dividing by 2 is the same as multiplying by a half, or finding half of that quantity. Minus 5 divided by 2 as well. So in other words, every term gets multiplied by 2. So once it's in this format, we now recognize that it's in the form y equal mx plus c, as we can see here. So we can identify that the quantity before x is what we refer to as the gradient. So m, the gradient, is equal to a half. And the c value is that number by itself afterwards, which is negative 5 over 2. So the gradient of the line is a half, and the y-intercept point starts with 0 for the x coordinate, and the y coordinate is that same c value of negative 2 and 1/2. Of course, 5 over 2 can be converted to negative 2.5. 2 goes into 5 twice, remainder 1 over 2. Let's look at another example. We have the 2y equals 8x plus 6. We do the same thing. We want to isolate the y on the left hand side. We only have 2y on the left hand side, so the only thing we need to do is to remove the 2 by division. 2 cancels 2. Divide the right hand side by 2 as well, but we separate it into 8x over 2 plus 6 over 2. Now 8x divided by 2 will give us 4x. So that's why we get the 4x here. And dividing the 6 by 2 will give us the 3. That's how we got the 3 here. Now, equating the y equals 4x plus 3 with the general form for the slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus c, we have the coefficient of the mx term is 4. And so c is just the 3. So the gradient is 4, and the y-intercept c is 3. But in terms of the y-intercept point, it's always going to be 0, 3, 0, c. So the y-intercept point is 0, comma c. So it's going to be 0, comma 3, since c is actually 3. And the final one, let's get the final one, which is 3y minus 5x equal 1. Now if you look at this side of the equal sign, the left hand side of the equal sign, that's the left hand side. Over here is the right hand side. We only want the y term on the left hand side. So we got to get rid of this guy right here. This is the x term. We do not want it on the left hand side. So how do we do that? Well, by adding 5x to both sides of the equation. In other words, let's write it here. To get rid of this minus 5x, we add 5x to cancel it from this side. So we got to do that to both sides. This cancels it out, so we have 3y equals. Now write the x term first, which is a positive 5x. The positive 1, we can write it afterwards. Now we need to get rid of this 3 that is multiplying to the left of y. Our goal is to have the y term only on the left hand side, which we do, but it should be 1y. So we divide by 3 to get it to be 1. We divide over the other side by 3. So this is what we did. We divided both sides by 3, which gave us y equals 5x divided by 3, writing it separately, and plus 1 divided by 3. So now it's in the form of y equal mx plus c. So our m is that quantity before the x, which is 5 over 3, as we can see here, and the c, that constant by itself, is 1/3. So our gradient is 5/3, and the y-intercept point is our coordinates 0, c, which will be 0, and c is 1/3. Hopefully that was helpful. Now let's look at some more questions. We want to determine the gradient and the y-intercept point. We have 5y plus 6x equals 4. Now we want to get it in this form. We want the y term only on that side, the x term plus the constant c. So we need to remove the x term from the left hand side. So in order to remove it, we need to pay attention to that fact that it's adding on the left hand side of the equal sign. So we remove it by the opposite operation, which is to subtract, and we do that to both sides. So 6x will cancel by subtracting 6x from positive 6x. That leaves us with 5y equals, now it's nice to put the x term first based on the setup for the equation of a straight line. Y equal mx plus c. The x term comes right after the equal sign, so we want to write that negative 6x right after the equal sign. And the plus 4, which is a constant without the variable x, goes right after. Now we are at a familiar place. We want to isolate the y completely without the 5 at its side. The 5 is multiplying y, so to remove it, we divide by 5. So this will give us 1y, which is what we're looking for. Divide this side over here by 5. Now we need to separate this into 6x divided by 5, the plus 4 also divided by 5. So recognize it in the form now of y equal mx plus c. The m term before the x is negative 6. In other words, the gradient is negative 6/5, or negative 6 over 5. And the y-intercept point, given as 0c, is equal to 0, and the c value being 4/5. This is the y-intercept point. Okay, so let's look at the next one, part B. 3x plus 2y equals 7. Again, we only want the y term to be on the left hand side of the equal sign, this equal sign. Only the y term we want over here. So we gotta get rid of this guy here. And we recognize, of course, there's a plus in front of it if we don't see it. So we're gonna subtract that, the opposite sign, the opposite operation in other words, and we do that to both sides. This will leave us with 2y on the left hand side, which is what we want, the y term on the left. And on the right hand side now, we have the negative 3x, and the 7 is a plus 7. So now we need to get rid of this 2 that multiplies to the left of y. And we do that by dividing both sides by 2. This in fact gives us the 1y, which we're looking for. This over here will be negative 3x divided by the quantity 2. Then to put back the plus sign. And the 7 also divides by the quantity 2. So now it's in the form of y equal mx plus c. Our m, with the coefficient of x, in this case the gradient is negative 3/2. And the c is 7, 2. So therefore the y-intercept point is 0, c, which we know is going to be 0, 7/2. If you want to write it as 3.5, that's fine. Next, let's look at the next question. Number 2C. 2y minus 5x equals negative 10. Of course, we want to isolate the y on the left, so we need to get rid of this minus 5x. So we use plus 5x, which is the reverse, to get rid of it. And so we're going to have 2y on the left. Put the x term first, which is a positive 5x. The minus 10 afterwards. Now we're at a family place. Want to get 1. We're going to divide each term by 2. Since this is going to isolate the y as 1y. And this will be 5 half x minus, now 2 into 2 goes once, into 10 goes 5 times, so that's negative 5. Now it's in the form of y equal mx plus c. So therefore, our gradient m is 5 halves, which of course can be written as 2.5. And our y-intercept point, 0c, would actually be 0, comma, negative 5. Okay, so c is negative 5. And the y-intercept point is 0, negative 5. Next one, let's look at the next one. D. We have negative 3x minus 4y equals negative 8. We want to get rid of the x term always. And since the minus 3x, get rid of it by adding 3x. And we do that to both sides. So it will cancel from this left-hand side of the equal sign. This is the left-hand side of the equal sign. It cancels out. And on the right-hand side of the equal sign, which is over here, we will have it. We have the plus 3x there. So this will give us negative 4y, put the equal sign, put the x term first, which is a plus or positive 3x. The minus 8 goes after. Now we need to get rid of this quantity that is multiplying to the left of y. How do we get rid of it? Well, we want to divide by negative 4. So we're going to divide each term by that amount. So this will give us the negative into negative is positive. 4 into 4 is 1, so that's positive 1y. This will give, now a positive 3 divided by negative 4 will be negative 3/4. Put the x at the side. Negative divided by negative, which is positive. 4 into 4 goes once, into 8 goes twice, so that's going to be plus positive 2. So this is now in the form of y equal mx plus c. So our m, our gradient, is negative 3/4. Our c is positive 2. That means our y-intercept point, which is 0c, is equal to 0, 2. Right, let's look at the next question, which is E. Negative 4y minus 2x equals 7. On the left-hand side, we only want the y term. Over here, guys, we only want y eventually equals. So we need to get rid of the x term first, which is not part of that option. So we recognize the sign before it is a minus, so we use the reverse, which is a plus 2x. And we do that to both sides. This will cancel from that side, leaving us with just the minus 4y equals. Put the x term first, which is 2x. Put the 7 after, which is the positive 7. Now we need to get rid of this negative 4 that multiplies to the left of y. We get rid of multiplication of a quantity by division of that same quantity. And we do that to each term. So this is going to give us a positive y. Since negative into negative is positive, 4 into 4 is 1. Now, if we have 2 over negative 4, then we treat this as a positive divided by negative is negative. 2 into 2 is 1, into 4 is twice, so that's negative 1/2. So this gives us 1, negative 1/2 x. Now, a positive divided by negative is negative, and that leaves us 7/4. So our gradient, m, is that number before the x term, which is negative 1/2 when y is the subject, as in y is equal to. And then the y-intercept point, 0c, is going to be 0, negative 7/4. Notice that there's a minus, so we treat this as a negative 7/4. Okay, let's look at the last question now. F, so we have negative 8y plus 6x equals negative 10. We examine the left-hand side of the equal sign. This is equal sign right there. Examine the left-hand side. We only want the y term over there, so we get rid of this one first. Examine the sign before the 6x is a plus. So we use minus to get rid of it, and we do that to both sides to keep the balance. This cancels out, so we're left with negative 8y equal, write the x term first, so negative 6x, write the constant after, negative 10. Then we're going to get rid of this number, this quantity that is multiplying to the left of y. Because it's multiplying, we divide by that same quantity, and we do that to each term. So this cancels out, negative negative is positive, left with y equals negative negative is positive, and so we're going to get 6 over 8. Now what is 6 over 8? If we divide both by the same quantity of 2, that gives us 3/4. So we have 3/4 x. Now 10 over 8 is what? Divide by the same quantity, which is 2, we end up with 5 over 4. Now negative into negative is positive, we have 5/4. So we clearly see in the form of y equals mx plus c that our m is equal to that quantity before x, which is 3/4, and the y-intercept point 0c is actually equal to 0, and the c value being 5/4. Alright, and so that's brought us to the end of this video. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and share with your friends. Thank you.